members that have been here before. Welcome to everybody. Starting this round of this. So first time I've been in the chair, but I'm down to my role rather than any other reason. And I've been a member of the committee and get. So just start off with apologies and any substitutions. So I've had apologies from Councillor Price, who's running late, hope us, and Councillor McLean. Everybody is. So is everyone happy with the minutes of the last meeting held in March? Any declarations of interest? Yes, Councillor.
Sorry, I have to declare that I'm also a member of the advisory board for cows.
You need to elect a vice chair. Anyone willing to put themselves forward? I need a nomination to come forward. But it's Councillor McLean who's unfair. And Councillor Price would be excellent. Should we elect Councillor Price then? Nominate Councillor Price, and then if he wants to. Yes, Councillor Love, you see you're quite keen, aren't you? Okay, so I've had enough for Councillor Price has been nominated. Who's going to second that? Thank you. All those in favour? Councillor Price. So public questions. I can't see any members of the public, and if we had any written. So we have a members' question time. So any councillor can ask the chair of any committee a question. I'm guessing it will be this committee. Questions that related to the two harbours.
Just clarify. Just to the committee. All councillors ask a question in this item.
Yes, that's correct. We've moved members' question times from the end of the thing so that questions can be asked that then covered off the agenda item.
Any members got any questions? Okay. So we've got the two important reports, but the finance report we have at this committee. Now we've got the draft annual report. Dominic, are you going to be presenting these? Do you want to do a presentation, and if members have got it?
Yeah, I'm more than happy to do that. Thank you, Councillor. I'll be quite brief because these budgets are relatively brief, just in case you have any questions. This is obviously the end of year figures. We've been commenting on these figures throughout the course of the year. There are no surprises here. It is pretty much as we expected it to be. So the budgetary accountants forecasts that we've been reporting on all year have pretty much been what we've ended up finally delivering. There's a couple of points just to note. I mean, in terms of the net position that we ended up in against the budget, for Newport Harbour, we are 42,000 in the good. and for Ventnor Harbour were 2,341 in the good. So we have delivered on the budget quite satisfactorily. We have been having a discussion amongst ourselves, because when you look down at the different lines in these budgets, there are some quite big swings from one to the other. Now, a lot of those, when you start delving into what the reason for that actually is, it's not that there's a particular issue, it's just that the codings have changed. So the accountants have changed the codings from one line to another. So what we would like to propose is that we have a kind of root and branch look at this, really, to try and get these so they're actually sitting in the right places. Because otherwise it just provides for a very confusing report for you all to look at. So I'm hoping that we can sit down and try and make sure that the budgets are, I mean, if I take some examples, you can see some huge swings in the income budgets on some categories. You know, one area is down, then one area is up by the same value. And all that's happened is the coding structure's just changed, but actually the position hasn't changed at all, or may have changed marginally. But I think overall, unless anybody's got any very specific questions, it's been a good year for the harbour once again. And I think we've been reporting on some fairly positive figures, particularly around Newport and to some extent Ventnor, but certainly for Newport for a number of years now, as we've migrated through this kind of transition in the harbour, where we've had our new harbour revision orders. And I'm hoping that that pattern will continue. But we do need to make sure that we are reviewing the leases and licenses in a timely manner. That's the only reservation I have. I don't know if anybody's got any questions for me on any of the reports.
Love.
So what can we do to increase the figures? That's the obvious question. And without putting the prices up, usually thinking what else can we do to generate income from the harbour? Perhaps that's a slightly different place to ask that question, but nevertheless. So it's good that we're not in the, you know, that we're in the black and rather than in the red, and that's so I'm just asking. So it's really satisfying that we are where we are, but we need to be progressive. And what else can we do to generate more funds to move forward?
I think probably the answer to that is kind of twofold. One is about looking at the existing leases and licenses for the dry side part of the harbour, if you like, as and when they come up for renewal now, where a lot of them have been kind of quite short-term leases because of the previous conditions associated with the harbour. Now we've got the new harbour revision order in place. We need to look at longer leases that are likely to bring in a greater return for us. I think that's the first thing we need to do. And secondly, I know that Jonathan's been looking at all sorts of opportunities, increasing the number of berths that we've got across the harbour, and they have been, you know, for example, although we've been struggling to pull it off because we can't really get the relationship going with Green King, but things like extending the Walkershore moorings down at the Folly would be something that we would like to do. We applied for the capital to do that. We'd still like to do that, but we need to get all parties singing from the same, you know, theme tune. But I think a lot of that comes from investment. I mean, I think, Jonathan, you might want to comment on this, but you've come up with all sorts of ways of increasing the number of berths, but it does require capital investment to do that, and an invest to save kind of attitude, which I think is something we've got to try and encourage and get people to understand.
I think we have got a couple of things this year which will help a little bit more with the income. Jonathan's done quite a lot of work on the Isle of Wight Festival with regard to berthing for the Isle of Wight Festival. Previously, we haven't had that particularly well organised, so we've changed it in a way that we're making people pay up front, and we're charging a lot more money for those types of things. The Burt Prior is a vessel that comes down to the gravel yard. They used to have a boat that came in and moved the aggregate backwards and forwards through the river, which they stopped a number of years ago, and they're looking to do that again. We've just taken the berth, which is worth about £5,500 a year, which is additional income. They haven't started transporting the aggregate backwards and forwards yet, but once they start that, there's additional charges that we will make to them. We're hopeful that that will probably be in the region of another £5,000 to £10,000 of boomage and sort of carriage fees that we would charge them. So there's a couple of little bits that we're looking to do for this year.
Thank you, councillor. Anything else?
Am I allowed to?
Yeah.
It's interesting about the festival. So I'm presuming that we take payment for both dinghies that come into the outer area or not, or is it just in the harbour itself? I'm interested in that because that seems to be an opportunity to make more money, but I don't know how you work that.
So for the festival, we have Newport Harbour itself. For the festival, they start coming in about Wednesday, and the ones that are booked must have a minimum of 3 boats per booking, and they must book for 3 days and pay for them at the time of booking. And then we will allow individual boats to come in, so we'll be rafted 3 or 4 deep. So usually on a busy weekend, we get 1 boat alongside the pontoon all the way down. For the festival, we will probably have up to 3 or 4 boats all the way down the pontoon. And we're charging a little bit extra than our standard mooring fees. For the boats that anchor in the river, we've got the safety boat that's supplied by Folly Ventures for the festival, but a byproduct of that is that they look after our anchorage space. So they make sure they don't block the channel, and they all pay per night to be anchored. So we get a cost off them as well. So most people that are using the harbour do pay to be there. So we do reasonably well out of it, but the monthly takings for June will be won't show the full total taken, because we've been taking the booking money since about January, so it's been spread out throughout the year.
Brand, did you have a follow up there, councillor?
So, I mean, thank you for that, for explaining how that works. I'm just trying to look at the opportunities for, like putting temporary pontoons in so people can raft up and pay a bit more, those sorts of things. In your figures, are we getting money for the use of the harbour, the quay itself? So we're getting a significant payment there for the quay, which comes under these headings, not under a different heading, which is part of the harbour, not somewhere else. Okay.
Yeah, just for clarity, I just correct if I'm wrong, but all income that's within the harbour estate, dry and wet, sits in a separate harbour account. So all of the car park income, for instance, I think it goes through the machine, as it were, but it gets spat out the other end and eventually comes back to the harbour account. Welcome, Councillor Price. Thank you for being able to make it. No, it's fine. It's fine, no problem. Yes, no, I did respond. We did mention it. Just going back in time, we had obviously capital works were done to the harbour walls. We've got more work to be done. Again, might be my memory's wrong, but I thought that was seen as like a loan from the Isle of Wight Council to us, or did it qualify as a capital investment by the council to the harbour? So, but I guess my question is, are we having to pay any of this very well earned income back to the Isle of Wight Council?
It has been approved as part of the capital programme, although it's costed against the harbour. So it's a bit academic really, but obviously as the harbour is accounted for separately, and as a statutory harbour, we have to produce a set of accounts to show the harbour's position each and every year. But although we've invested considerable sums in the harbour over the last few years, you're beginning to see some kind of return on it, because the position's, in the good every year, and has been for quite some time, and hasn't been a liability to the council, which it was previously. But that I suppose in some extent, there was always the argument, and it was something that came out of the creation of the harbour revision order. There were a lot of comments by the public at the time that we weren't producing those accounts properly, and we weren't making sure that all of the income that we were generating was going back into the harbour. We are now, like car park income.
it's worth members being aware of that. In fact, we had a question at, I don't know, anyone else that, I don't think we were at licensing training on Monday, and we were hearing about where they bring taxis over and they're going to do a quick check on them, and they're using harbour land. So I was like, oh, are we getting any income? What do you mean any income from that? I said, well, actually, it's harbour land. That's not Isle of Wight Council land. So that I think the answer was probably not. But I think because they're getting recompense, I think, from whoever, you don't have to pay directly. So well, we might be could be short some money there. So you want to chase that
I
up.
think that's really just us working with other council departments and helping them out, because they also use Jonathan's offices to base themselves from to do that. Once a couple of times a year they've been doing it, haven't they?
That's good that we are working as one council. That's really good. That's what we need to be doing. Through the it was just basically end of year, draft end of year, so very healthy position for Newport, and it's great to see a last plus for Ventnor. I mean, that's been the albatross, isn't it, for some time. So it's good that the new because they've got the it's out to do, there's a contract, isn't there, to do it's mostly the seaweed, wasn't it? Yes, that's all sorted. Sounds good. Right, well, I can't see any more hands up from members or any more questions. So again, well done to everybody really for getting us in this position, and look forward to work carrying on. And yeah, it's Mr. Minns, yeah.
Yeah, sorry, councillor, we did need to mention when you talked about approving the minutes last time, there was an outstanding action, which was for us to produce a map of the harbour, which I think councillor Love had asked for. A draft of that's in front of you now. If you require something different, I'm more than happy to look at amending that. So sorry, I should have mentioned that earlier.
I believe we did do a tour, didn't we, last year, year before? If anyone wants to go and have a look around the harbour at all. Newport, I suppose Newport's probably most of interest, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know what part on the agenda we were going to discuss this, but as you brought it up, it might be worth just mentioning now. I think there are two things that we need to consider, particularly as we've got certain new members on this group, is looking at the training again, which Jonathan or Lawrence may cover later, and making sure that you've all had the opportunity to do that training, and quite possibly at the right time of year to do the visit down the river that you talked about, so that people that haven't done that before can get a chance to see the harbour and see those things that are on that map and have them pointed out and have a discussion around those.
Just for the record, it's worth explaining the why we have this committee, why we have to have this committee, because it's not just like a normal committee, we're just here to chit chat. It actually has a legal function, because we are looking after 2 municipal harbours. So I don't know if that's worth saying. I don't know if Joseph wants to say anything quickly.
Yeah, absolutely. So the council is the harbour authority, and we are the duty holder as well. Sorry, you are the duty holder as harbour committee, making decisions on the Port Marine Safety Code and health and safety legislation, and then the other elements that lead to the harbour estate and the management of that. That's a very broad overview. I'm happy to circulate a note afterwards. That would help on the brief summary of functions.
We have a duty, basically a legal duty, to oversee this work, which we hadn't had prior in previous years, but I think it's really proved its worth to have this committee and all the safety work that's gone on. No more questions on those 2 papers. Let's move swiftly on. So it's just to read to note, isn't it? So we've noted it. I think nothing else to say on that. And now we've got reports of Senior Harbour Master. We've got the Newport and then Ventnor. So Mr. Brown, do you want to do any presentation? They're always very lively reports. Always something that sticks out there to make you smile.
Good afternoon all. I've added to this report just a rough idea of our visitors numbers, so you'll see them listed. So as you can see from March, as soon as April came in and the weather got better, you can see our numbers have increased, which is good. For our permanent, mainly at the Folly, all of those, you can see that we do have a bit of availability, but we are running out of berths that are available, which is a great thing. And the nice thing is most of them are paid as well, which is always encouraged. For events, there's been numerous things around the festival, around the harbour. The main one was the River Fest that worked very well attended, and they're coming back next year, which is always good. most things that we've inspected are all in place and are they meant to be. Some things we've done to pontoons and steps is that all of the pontoons now at the have been power washed by the harbour staff at the beginning of the season, and they've also painted all of the bollards and ladders so it looks a bit tidier. Plus they're a bit more obvious so people don't drive into them, which is fully encouraged. For the electrics on Newport visitors pontoons, we have changed the bollards where the electric sockets are actually installed, and we've actually put separate meters for each socket because before they used to share it, which sometimes caused problems with visitors. So they're now new and working, which is good. Slipways have been tidied and cleaned regularly. Harbour boats and equipment, the harbour staff painted the shower block windows and given it a bit of a tidy before the season started. Instance wise, you've probably heard that the paddle steam and the Ride Queen managed to catch fire. This is outside of Newport's jurisdiction, so it's not part of the harbour. But we did get reports about it happening. We double checked. The Environment Agency was down there at the time and confirmed that the water they were using to put the boat out was safe and not polluted, so it could go into the river. And I understand that that's being organised by Island Harbour, the future of Ride Queen. But we haven't got any full details on that. But it is outside of our jurisdiction. But we have been kept informed, and we've informed cows as well. The other one is loss of stability. One of our historic houseboats sadly sank. The owner has tried to refloat it, but obviously it wasn't possible. So that has been lifted and cleared. At the same time, we cleared another houseboat that the owner had given up because he was having problems insuring it. The lifting and the disposal was all paid by the owners of the boat, so it didn't cost the harbour anything to do. We helped out moving some boats around, and we let them use the car park for free. But the actual process of lifting and removing was not paid by the council. Pollution-wise, we had a report of from the public that they thought there was something that had been discharged. Harbour staff went down there. There was no evidence of it, but Southern Water were already on site, so we've had no reports of actual pollution, but there was a report of it. Other than that, sort of additional stuff, we're still getting the odd tent set up on the harbour site or near the harbour site, and with the help of the environment officers, we're making sure that they're not a permanent thing, and they get moved on, which is good. The main one is Unit 7, which used to be the Classic Boat Museum and used to be the Aluminium Boat Company just behind Jubilee Stores, has had new tenants in, and they started 1st of April. They've tidied the shed and now starting manufacturing, so they're in, so that's good. And also Island Roads have been in May have conducted inspections of both of the bridges. So this is the flyover. They've been doing inspection for the work they're doing at the end of the year for the bearings on top of the posts. And the other one was the footbridge and road bridge onto the quay itself. They inspected that as well. But other than that, it's all going in the right direction and major dramas. So all good. Any questions?
Councillor Redrock.
Hi. Couple of questions. The cost of changing the electrics, that massively expensive, or was it just a ballpark figure?
The changing of the bollards and the extra meters was under £10,000. And the nice thing that if we want to change the electric system as a whole, it's not. We can reuse all of them for whatever we do to it. So it's a future thing.
Like an add-on, yeah.
Yeah, and the original electric boxes were 15. Let's just say the fiberglass was beginning to biodegrade, to give you an idea how long they'd been there.
I found it.
Sorry, just to add to that, I think well, the reason for changing it was that, like Jonathan said there, there was one electrical meter to provide two boats. So if us two had a boat in there, mine was a big expensive boat and his wasn't, he'd charge it up and I'd use the electricity. So it was about splitting this, yeah. So which was really, and we've also had an electrical company look at it for the future works that we need to do there. So there is some more works, but it's just, that's the first phase of it really.
Just to come back on that, I have used the facilities up there myself a few times. How many, that 10,000, how many units were actually changed? Just to give me an idea of per unit.
So all the units on the visitors pontoons, so just the pontoons, which is 5 units, so 5 extra meters, and then new bollards themselves, and then of course they've got new lights built into them.
Can I carry on, Chair, for my next question? What was the cost of the lift out for the boats that sunk? Because Island Harbour's got a similar problem going on. I'm just curious.
I'm afraid I can't tell you. The quotes were all done between MCM that carried out the work and the owners of the boats. So we weren't involved in the quotation or the amounts at all. So I'm afraid I don't know.
Okay, yeah, Councillor Price.
Great to see that unit 5, is it called, that's occupied now? That's absolutely fantastic, and I'm glad it ended up being the tenant that we wanted in there as well. So, you know, it brings jobs as well, doesn't it? Maybe just outside of this forum, because I know it's obviously a public meeting. Who should I talk to about one of the other tenants? They've come to me about something. I don't think it's appropriate to bring it up here, but I wasn't sure who to speak to regarding their contract with the council. Who would it be, you, Alex, or?
Well, it used to be so that we used to deal with the tenancies ourselves when Mr. Newton was here. He used to do all of that. But when that position ended, that responsibility transferred over to property services. So it would be Alan White.
Okay.
But I mean, if you get any difficulties with that, come back to us and we'll try and facilitate that.
Thank you.
Councillor Love.
Thank you. Again, just trying to catch up really. How much CCTV do we have in there? The reason my ears popped up on that is because of the discharge on, you know, we didn't know whether if it was or wasn't right. That had been a discharge. Is there a CCTV looking at that? Have we got CCTV in there? How much have we got?
So down at the harbour estate itself, the harbour have got no CCTV. We do have the option for body worn cameras if we need them. The Jubilee stores is quite heavily camerised with CCTV around it since the new tenants have moved into the 2 upper floors. Where the report of possible pollution, if you look on the plan, it's actually down by Dodner. So it's right next to the Medina Valley Sailing Centre. So it's a long way away and not much there. And it's one of the known discharge points. And when they do discharge from there, we do get an email stating what location and the amount of time it was used for. The problem with it is that they give us a time frame. So it's been running for 3 minutes or 123 minutes, but there's no information about the size of the pipe. So it could be similar to a hose pipe, or it could be a 4-foot outfill pipe. But there are 7 within, I think 7 within Newport Harbour's jurisdiction.
So, Southern Water send me lots of messages about they haven't discharged when I've stood there and watched them discharging myself. That's the point that I make. So that's one specific thing. That's not really what my question is about. My question is about really, should we have some CCTV? Because it seems to me logical that we should at least have a couple of cameras covering the parameter of the river, looking down over what we own, and so that we can observe anything for ourselves rather than be reliant upon others. So, you know, Cowes Harbour Commission along their river have at least 25 cameras, all belonging to them in different places, and not belonging to any of the businesses. The reason is that I'm asking that is in this world of complaints and all those sorts of things. Protecting our staff is wonderful with the body cameras, but protecting our assets is something perhaps a bit more interesting. I would have hoped that there would have been at least looking from the bridge down, you know, a camera looking down the river that covers the pontoons specifically, because I regularly see kids on there and all sorts of stuff. And I'm just wondering whether if that's something that we perhaps ought to consider, of course, as the best cost as we can, but I just think it would be helpful to you to have some extra eyes that then support what you either find or don't find in the future moving forward, and possibly one further down even from the Jubilee stores onto the river there, so that if there are any incidents, and I'm not saying that there are, that we've got some of our own eyes on it. Does that sound fair?
Yes, councillor, I've listened to what you're saying. You're suggesting this might be part of our health and safety approach to managing the harbour, and is having CCTV best practice in other municipal harbours, Mr. Brand?
Just quickly to update, there are cameras at Folly Inn that oversee the river there, which are managed by Folly Ventures, which also manage Cowes', so it does cover all of the visitors' pontoons at the Folly and some of the other areas. And for the harbour itself, during the festival do put, I believe, two cameras that do actually cover the river during the festival. Yeah, nothing further down.
I just think it's wise to have a camera in that location, given the fact that we have Riverfest and other things there, where there could be the potential for incidents, without going to, you know, huge amounts of expense, to have a couple of general cameras in that area that give us a coverage, so that if there are incidents on a night or during the day, or with people falling in the water or boats coming and not paying, or whatever, that there is some support for you operating the river. That's all that I'm thinking about in this. So that's just one. So
I think I don't know what covers Newport. Don't know whether there's the potential. Is there any CCTV through the rest of Newport? There's not a potential to back onto that, is there? I think we can. I think an easy way for us to install CCTV would be to install something in and around our building, because the place we've got the supply to and the place we can lock away screens to is actually in our building. So we could investigate the cost and the logistics of actually putting some CCTV that would cover, at least it would cover back towards the bridge, and it would cover the other way. But as far as putting CCTV across the whole of the harbour, yeah, I think it's probably.
Yeah. I'm just trying to think about our health and safety and our
Good idea.
general, as a step forward about improving services, so that's something else that goes onto our like our spec of the harbour, that we have got this CCTV coverage, we've got this, that, and the other. But I've got
It's a tool in our belt these days, isn't it? Yeah. I've got to bring this to Mr. Windsor in a minute as well, but
I just got a couple of really quick. So, can I just ask about payment? Are we cashless payment system? Should we be?
I think we can take cash or we can take cards. I think the council as a whole, I don't think the policy is going towards completely cashless.
Well, completely cashless on the floating bridge.
no, and
But
I
I'm not
got
asking
caught
for that
out the other
reason.
day. I only got asked to leave the floating bridge.
I'm
So
just trying to
oh yeah,
understand
cash on me.
what the logistics are, that's all. I just need to understand. I don't, you know, it just seems better from my perspective, for us not to be handling cash. It's one less job if we can do it, you know, but it's just the point. It's just, just trying to understand for
There's
myself.
also the costs involved as well in
What about pump out, when you talk about discharge into the river, boats pumping out, builders, etc. We don't have a pump out facility.
No. So the houseboats, which are at Black House Quay, they all use cassette loos, and they've got an emptying point that goes into a tank, and then the council empty it. The visitors that come in, we supply a shower block. So we encourage them not to use their own facilities on board. Pumping out and such for bilges and stuff. We keep an eye on, depending on how much oil, but usually it's just rainwater. But there isn't a charge for that. And if the harbour staff realise that boats do need to be pumped when they go down to the folly because of heavy rain, they tend to pump it out, and then we let the owner know. And if we're doing it continuously, then we will raise issues with having to pump them out. But it works out easier and cheaper for us to just quickly put a pump in it and pump it out when it's a bit low in the water than trying to get the owner to do it, and then it sinks, and then we've got to deal with the sunk boat.
Thank you. Mr. Minge, wants to come in.
Yeah, it was only really with regards to the CCTV stuff, and to kind of build on what's already been said. I think in terms of CCTV for buildings, as Lawrence has suggested, you know, we have got CCTV locally in buildings, which we can look at. I think outside of the buildings, you're then into the highway CCTV cameras that Island Roads maintain and oversee. So it might be worth us just checking what cameras they've got in the area.
That way, as an action then, thank you, really helpful, thank you. We'll bring it back to the next committee.
No, thank you for that. Just that I know that if I had a camera, you wouldn't be able to look at it because of data protection. So that's why I'm kind of asking about the systems. It's just something to look into that I think would benefit the whole of the harbour. That's all.
Any more questions from members on the report from Newport? I've just got one. And Councillor brought up the issue about the issue or non-issue, we don't know because it's been captured, about the sewage. Because you said that it gets logged by Southern Water, any effluent that's gone straight into the river. Is it worthwhile? Just wondering, would members be interested to see actually as part of our, or even maybe yearly or half yearly, if we have a report on actually how much sewage is pumped in, and if there's any, you know, positive direction, you know, there's less, we can see less going in. I just think, I mean, I know we're here primarily for the health and safety of the operating of the harbour. Is the water quality something that we're interested in as well, or should be interested in, I guess is my.
I think we get a hell of a lot of emails come in with quite detailed information with what's being discharged. We can look at that to see if we can record it in any way, but at the end of the day, we can't do anything about it because they have the right to do it. But I know you did a little bit of work on it a few years ago, John, didn't you, with logging?
I think I've got 2 years that I've logged, and then as it wasn't needed, I haven't. I can probably find it. I think it's from 2 years ago that I've got about 18 months worth. Every time they discharge, they send me a separate email for every single discharge point they have on the island. So I get about 60 emails, and then I've got to go through it to find the 7 that are from Newport Harbour. So it's not as straightforward as, they won't give us a list, if that makes sense.
Price.
Thank you. Yeah, perhaps a future agenda item could be a representative from Southern Water coming in. We had one before, didn't we?
We did.
A representative from Southern Water to come in and actually report to the members, because it would be difficult, I would think, for the harbour master to be trying to record all of that. If Southern Water would be keeping their own records, wouldn't they? And perhaps we could dig into that detail with them if it could be a future agenda item for this committee. Thank you.
Councillor Price. Mr. Mayor.
I think that's a very good suggestion. I was going to suggest something similar myself. I think if we're reporting on figures in this meeting is open to the public then assume that we are actually in control of it. We're not. They have a licence to enable them to do that. So I think it's only right and proper that we should be inviting Southern Water in, not just to talk about releases for just the harbour, but possibly for all of our beaches at some point in the year as well. Because the same thing applies. But I think if we focus too heavily in this committee on that, I'm not so sure that the assumptions that we've drawn from that will be correct. I think we've got an influencing, but I think we should be influencing as a council as a whole for all of that work personally. This in the harbour is just a very, very small part of it.
And I think that's the right way forward, because if you say it's not our responsibility, but it's our harbour. In fact, Newport Harbour, we actually own the riverbed as well, don't we? So we're very much responsible. We're very interested in the water quality, but obviously we don't want to create unnecessary work. And it's okay having data, but what are you going to do with that data? So having them here to be held to account, I think that's the thing. It's the pressure, isn't it? It's the influence that we can put upon them. And I guess when I'm thinking about water in that way, any flood mitigations we need to be looking at in the future as well for the harbour area. Is that a topic that I don't recall we've had a topic on flooding, but obviously it is one of our risk areas, isn't it? But that was something that would be helpful or not. Sorry, I've got Councillor Love and Councillor Redrup. And if you want to come back on that as well, sorry, afterwards.
No, I totally agree about the flooding, without any doubt. It's something that should be within our responsibility. But also, you're right, the riverbed is our responsibility. And whilst they're not here to defend themselves, I know that people tell me that they discharge and it's not reported, whatever. So we do have a responsibility for our riverbeds. And I do know that there is a colony of seahorses in this river. Okay, so I know that that's there. So we have an environmental impact, which then takes me to the next question. So in East Cowes, we are monthly paying for water quality testing. Are we doing the same here or not in our harbour? I don't know. If not, why aren't we? Because we should be. Because that's how we hold others to account for the water quality in our river. Because if there is a problem, we can see that there's a problem, it goes up or down, and then we can then work out from there whether if that's river discharge or what it is. I don't want to give us tons and tons of work, but we are responsible for this river and its healthy state in terms of the seabed as well. And if we've got no way of measuring that, we should have a way of measuring that.
I guess it's how it fits in with the safety marine code as well, doesn't it? And our duty holders as well. So Mr. Min's coming. Are you the UK to come in after that? Okay, Mr. Councillor Redrup. Yeah, Mr. Min.
Yeah, I think I can probably answer. In terms of testing, the council does test all of its bathing waters, and that's an obligation for us to test all our bathing waters. I don't think we test for the harbours because they're not considered to be bathing waters, but we could extend the test to include the harbour. It would be interesting to find out what other harbours do, other estuaries do, possibly, because although there are people maybe not bathing in the river, there are people that are sailing in the river, boats capsize, or people learn to sail in the river. So I don't think that's an unreasonable request. We can put that down as an action, I think. No. Yeah, there is some testing going on, as Lawrence has just whispered in my ear, but we could do this as part of our whole beach management process. You know, we could extend the bathing water testing to other areas if we so choose to do. The other thing, I think in terms of flooding, I think we need to be a little bit careful of within the Environment Committee, flooding is on the agenda in that committee. I think they would want to discuss that as being one of their major areas of concern. Whether we have any influence on that or whether we can report to that or take reports from that, that may be something we need to look at.
Thinking of the risk, you know, are we aware of the risks, I suppose, and is that on our risk register? Is that coming to a tool how we manage the harbour, understanding the flood risk? That was all I was thinking of. Oh, sorry.
So that would be my thought about that. Sorry, Councillor Redrup. Is that it's not necessarily about the wider flooding, but if it impacts upon our facilities such as electrics and what does that mean for us, and what mitigation have we taken as part of the wider plan?
When we have these once in every 100-year flooding every 10 years now, it's Councillor Redrup, you're very patient. I'm going to say that probably I left you hanging so long.
largely. It's basically what I was going to say was to support Alex and our members that we should have the water authorities come to here once a year at least, and with the data that Jonathan can supply us, and it works in two ways. It keeps the Southern Water their toes to a degree, small degree, but it also lets the people that out there that elect us and employ us that we are monitoring these things, and it isn't our responsibility, but we're looking at it and we're trying to look after our environment, aren't we? So I for one think it's an excellent idea to have them at least once a year to come and sit in front of us. Not that we have much power, but it's a good thing to do. That's all I was going to say.
Thank you. So maybe we can look ahead to the next few meetings, maybe the next couple, give them plenty of notice to be able to come and just discuss that would be really helpful. And the the suggestion maybe of putting the water testing, if we can, if it's like within the beach testing regime, that might be helpful. Again, we need to know what we're going to do with this information when we've got it. It's no point having information if we just go, oh, that's lovely to know. Mr. Mintz.
I'm sure we can look at that. I mean, the only thing with all this information is it's the local authorities around the country, particularly around ward beaches and all of that kind of thing, do this kind of testing. The downside to it, of course, is you undertake a test. It takes a few days for the results to come back, and then often what you're doing in beaches anyway is to advise people not to swim and not to. But you're doing that from a test which was 2 or 3 days ago, and the tide's been in and out 4 or 5 times, so the information isn't really that great. But I think, as Councillor Redbrook said, if we do the testing and start to identify patterns with things, at least we can deal with it that way. But it can't be in any way reactive at the minute because it's not quick enough.
Hello.
Yeah, no, so I agree entirely. I think it's about saying by having got a similar discussion in East Counts now about diesel generators and things like that. If you haven't got a baseline to start with, you don't know where you're at, whether if it's going up or down from our perspective as a council. And it's not necessarily about people on a day-to-day swimming, but that information could be useful to UKSA and all those other sorts of people there. But I think what's really important is that we demonstrate as part of the biosphere, if you like, that our river and our harbours are as healthy as they can be. And I wasn't just thinking necessarily about Newport Harbour. I was just wondering whether if we've got any tests within the harbour, even if we just do it 4 times a year or whatever you come up with, because I know it's just a few £100 is not per test, and it's about 50 quid, 60 quid a test because we do it in these cows every month. But it's still a cost. But I'm just thinking that then gives some reassurance that our harbour is healthy and well-being, and if it starts to go off, then we've got something that we can hold people accountable for. And I don't know at this moment where that is. Can I ask one more question? I don't know where does the harbour actually end? So I know that there's a solid bit at the end of, but we've also got under the bridge. How much responsibility have we got there for how far?
Right up to Coppins Bridge. Goes to
Yeah.
Coppins Bridge, doesn't it?
So it goes on. So the bit along the side Coppins Bridge is ours as well, is it? So where?
So my understanding, and I'll double check this, is that it goes to the bridge and then it goes up north to the Folly, is the furthest north element of our, and then it's the Crown, who own that after that.
I understood that the harbour, it was actually goes from Coppins Bridge where the cinema is.
Yeah,
Down
I
that
believe
way.
that it is within the harbour estate right up to the cinema, isn't it? I believe.
That has to be accessible as part of the harbour.
Jonathan, can clarify.
It's not actually that. It's not actually that far. So it's this. So it goes under the dual carriageway until the first weir, and that's where it stops. So we're about the middle of Coppins Bridge. The other river, it's the second weir that's just after the bridge that you get into the Key Art Centre. So it stops at that. Beyond that, then it's the Environment Agency as a river. And at the other end, it stops at the locks of Island Harbour. So that's the end of our jurisdiction. Everything in Island Harbour is theirs. And then if you keep going, in line with the pub pontoon at the Folly, and if you take a line straight across to the small pier the other side by Pinkmead Estate, that is the boundary of Newport Harbour and Cowes. If you follow it down the other side of the river, so just before Vestas, there is a creek there, but you'll see that there's a walkway that is part of the footpath. That is the boundary of Newport Harbour and the creek. So there are 5 different rivers that come into the Newport Harbour, and most of them, it's just when they get into the main river that they become part of our jurisdiction, which means that we do get a lot of water that comes in from elsewhere beyond our control.
Yeah, so I've got Councillor Redrup and Councillor.
I just want to add to Jonathan's. If you look at your maps, you'll see. Where am I? Down where Island Harbour is, down to the Folly Inn. There's a stretch of water that is actually owned by the Crown Estates, isn't it?
The riverbed is owned by the Crown Estate from just beyond Island Harbour, where it's got the lighter colour of the field.
Yeah.
So when it's just after the lighter coloured field going north to just before the Folly, so where it's got Folly East B written, the area there up to the edge of the channel is still owned by the Crown Estate. That we rent off them.
We agreeing that it's basically from the Folly Inn itself to just before or just at the end of Island Harbour's pontoon. That area there is owned by the Crown Estate.
Yeah, it's this bit just there. So it's.
I know. I thought you went.
No, it
stops there.
Yeah. So we've got. Because it was given to the Crown, taken over by the Crown during the Second World War when they were building landing crafts, and after the war finished, they didn't come back. So that's how it's ended up with the Crown.
But from the Folly Inn downwards to Cowes is owned by the Crown Estates.
I'm not sure about Cowes's. I believe that they've got a lot more land or seabed that they rent, which is Crown Estate, that is rented off, but I don't know the percentage.
And do we not have a pontoon down in Cowes jurisdiction that's owned by us? Remember when I was on Cowes advisory body, there was a pontoon that you had a lot of trouble with a particular fisherman?
Whitegates.
Whitehouse, sorry.
Whitegates.
Whitegates.
Whitegates, yeah.
Up to 3 years ago, it was not part of Newport Harbour, but managed by the council. It is no longer managed by the council and has been taken over by Cowes Harbour Commission. And they rent berths for their berth holders to keep tenders to be able to access their boats. So it's now run and operated by them.
It has nothing to do with us anymore. Sorry about that.
Councillor Love.
I was just going to suggest it's a big harbour to test in, isn't it? Really, to be fair, I mean, I would suggest that something at the brighter port in the south end, where everybody berths, and something sort of down in the middle. The reason I ask all this is because I know that colony of seahorses is by the old gas stations in that area. There's a big colony there of seahorses. So, and we don't have a responsibility. And then we've got the other worms and all that sort of stuff that I just think it's a good idea.
We do have Sue looks at the river quality, doesn't she? We do have work that does go on, and we discuss that more at the harbour forum, don't we? We have the discussions on that. We do have some special designations down the harbour, triple SIs, SSIs, for instance. So I think we have to strike a balance with what is the duty of this committee as far as the health and safety of management of the harbour. That's our specific duty, and to where these other items we're discussing, how they fit in with that. I think we've got to be quite clear of the benefit, that there's a clear benefit, but is that benefit sitting with the harbour and our harbour committee and our work as duty holders, or would that be more straying into the Water Quality Environment Agency and the work that Sue Hawley does? I don't want to comment on that. Anybody? Yeah.
Jonathan was saying that we have the Environment Agency down twice a year that test off of our pontoons. That may be that we can contact them to ask them what they're testing for and can we see sight of the results. And that would bypass anything then if we can get it from somewhere else.
I don't think that that's enough. I don't think that's enough. I think that more regular testing is the way forward. And the reason is, I'll tell you the reason I'm asking about it, is because I walk from the island harbour to the folly all the time, and the state of the beach in terms of rubbish and all sorts of, is absolutely, now it's full of all sorts of bits and pieces of boats that coming up the river get swept in and get swept out. So that, I don't see that as being your specific responsibility, but there's no reason why we can't work with our local schools and beach watchers and clean watchers to do all of that cleaning up, because it is a mess. If you walk down there and walk on the beach, you'll see all sorts of stuff.
Councillor Garrett?
Thank you, Chair. I think we possibly exhausted this line of conversation for today, but Councillor Love's absolutely right. And I was looking at the terms of reference for this committee. It goes beyond just being the duty holder. We do have, for example, a term of reference, which is to oversee achievement of environmental considerations. So I think at some point we might, and Chair, you might want to bring us together as an informal committee just to run us through what the impact of these various objectives within the Constitution on what this committee should be doing. One other is, of course, is the development for, it says here, of business plans, which are to be approved by the full council. So it's those sorts of things. Have we become a little bit over-focused just on our duty holder side of things, but actually a bit like audit and governance is more than just audit. It is other things that we look at those other things as well. But
thank you very much for looking at that, Councillor Garrett. I mean, if we want to have an informal session to look at the new constitution, how it relates to the committee, and go over our terms of reference and see how we're aligning our work and the reports that we're getting with that, I think that's a very healthy thing to do. We should be reviewing that yearly anyway. So whether you want to do that formally at our next harbour committee, or have or would you like to have an informal meeting to discuss it, members? We're completely able, I think, to have a working group, aren't we? Just to look at that. We could do that maybe over a cup of tea, maybe down the harbour.
being cake is always good.
So I've got a couple of actions. So let's just wrap up this particular move. We haven't had our Ventnor report yet. So we have got a couple of items relating to health and safety, and maybe look at as best practice as well in other municipal harbours. So like one was the CCTV. How can we just have extra ones on the Harbour Masters building, so that we look internally, that doesn't have to go through because I don't even know if the ones in Newport are even on, are they in Newport? I'm not sure we've had the money. I think it was an intention of getting the money to have those monitored again, but I'm not sure that they're up, but I don't know if they're actually rating. Getting Southern Water in, unless you want to wait for that until we've had our informal general chit chat about our terms of reference and our environmental responsibilities for the committee. Do you want to then wrap everything up in one and then have a work plan, who's going to come in and when? That might be a better way than we scoop it all together then, can't we? Yes, Councillor Price.
Chairman, I think we probably ought to invite Southern Water anyway, to appear at and report to us at a future meeting. Perhaps within the next 9 to 12 months, within what's left of this council, in particular, so that because obviously there's different councillors back after next year, we've got somewhere to start from, but I think inviting them in sometime in the next calendar year would make sense.
Yeah, I don't know if we've got our dates. I don't know if we had our dates in our diary. September, January, or March. January might be.
January then Marico come down.
Maybe September then they can. We'll have an interim meeting. We'll do our little working group on the terms of reference and environmental responsibilities in between. Does that sound like a good idea? Then we can wrap all the things we talked about in that work, but we'll have separate look at the CCTV, the viability of that, costs, and we'll get Southern Water, see if they can come to us at September meeting. That sounds like a good way forward, everybody?
Yeah.
Did I miss anything out? Sorry, Councillor.
Yeah, no, so I think a good thing, so I know I'm going off at a slight tangent, but I think a good thing would to do exactly what you said, sooner rather than later, but to actually have a walk down along that section so that people can see what I'm talking about, because it is substantial boat rubbish, you know, bits of boat, bits of foam, some slung over
It's
the
up by the
side.
pulley.
Yeah, on that particular section. So if we could meet, I don't know, somewhere in that area to chat and then have a walk along that area. Because it's substantial stuff that I'm seeing there. It's not even small bits, you know, everything from Coke bottles to somebody's thrown an old armchair over the side from a boat or something.
So, Mr. Spence, might be good if we can invite Sue along to that working group as well when we talk about environmental stuff. So I know we do tend to talk about that at the Pacific Newport Harbour forum that we have. But I'm not sure when the next one of that one is.
Must be relatively soon, but they only occur twice yearly now,
That's
the
right,
youth
twice
group
yearly now,
meetings. I think we probably we've probably got another 2 or 3 months for the next one, I would think.
Be coming up.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I also suggest on the back of Council Love is that you invite the Medina Mariners. The Medina Mariners, because I believe Carl was actually talking about that area. They have their dinghies, isn't they?
They come to the forum. Medina Mariners come to the forum.
Who
Yeah, they're
actually
members of the
comes? So I
forum.
haven't
Yeah,
been there.
yeah. They come to the forum. They are members there.
Because I know from past experience they're quite interested.
Yeah.
So it would be polite to invite them to that walk. Well, you know, you don't have to. Just a suggestion.
I just had one more question. Really, it was about the going back to the leases and licenses. Has that eased up at all? That's I know at a previous meeting there was a hiatus or a bit of a blockage maybe sometimes in getting some of these leases and licenses done in a timely fashion because of the, as you just described, we have an issue with resource since we lost Sean.
Simple answer is yes. I mean, it has slightly improved since we last met. We have met with the property team and talked about what needs to be done. But there is a much more limited resource now to do that, as you suggest. My only concern is if we've limited the resource because of savings, if we're not doing the leases and licenses, we're losing more than we're saved. So I think that we really do need to get to grips with that. I know that property services are looking at investing more time and effort into leases and licenses generally. So I think the hope is that work will, that they have employed a few new people as well. So I think the hope is that that's the benefits of that start to kick in and that leases and licenses are done in a timely manner. But to be fair to property services, with the loss of people from our team, they took on that additional responsibility with very little extra resource.
I appreciate that. Let's hope we can get some more resource in there. And like you say, you're actually earning money, aren't we? Rather than spending it. So it's I just think it would be a high priority, wouldn't you? So no more questions on Newport. So Mr. Brown, if you'd like to take us through your report on Ventnor, please.
Ventnor Harbour itself is all going in the right direction. Permanent berths, even with the new pontoons, they've managed to fill them all. You'll see in May that they lost one and they have got somebody that's going to take it on, but they haven't signed on when the report was written. Nothing's really that exciting has happened there. It's all ticking along, gone very nicely. We did have a vessel that grounded outside of the harbour and outside of its jurisdiction. You may have heard that there was a rib that got washed up on the beach next to it. That was recovered by the fishing fleet, and it's now in Ventnor Harbour waiting to be recovered by the owners. So, but that was outside of our jurisdiction, but it is now into our jurisdiction because it was only placed to moor it. The main thing was the dredging that was undertaken. So they carried out a mechanical dredge, so diggers and dumper trucks, and within the jurisdiction, so within the harbour itself, they left it by the slipway, waited for it to clear out, and then it was taken over to Bonchurch Beach, where there is a desperate need of sand, and they left it with them to replenish the beach there. So they've done a very good job at making it deeper and got rid of the bumps at Ventnor, but they've, as a byproduct, has helped out Bonchurch Beach being a bit sandier. After the pump, after the dredging, they haven't really needed to have the pump on that much, so for clearing seaweeds and such. So that's why it's such a low number of hours, because there hasn't been any seaweed, touch wood, at the moment. But then again, we are coming into the summer season. It's usually come September we'll get buried with it. But so far, all going well.
Thank you very much. Any questions, members, on Ventnor? No? Okay, thank you very much. So we've moved to the last agenda item, which is the health and safety, harbour safety management plan for Newport and Ventnor. Oh, actually, Councillor Price, while you're in your absence, you were voting as vice chair, just to let you know. Exactly. Yeah, yeah. And I didn't think it was fair for Councillor McLean to be given that. So it wasn't me that suggested it, by the way. It was your friend. It was your friends over there. Yeah. Sorry, Mr. Brown. Would you like to take us through this report? Thank you.
I'll do that. That's okay.
Sorry, Mr. Edmondson. Sorry.
The harbour's safety management plan now incorporates a section that just has management objectives to it. And the guys that have been on here for quite a long while, remember we had to get well plans. Well, this has really replaced that, and we just sort of work our way through bits that this was presented, I think, at the last meeting. Has quite kindly highlighted the changes or any amendments that we've got to it. And point 9, we had to establish a Ventnor Harbour user group, and we had the first meeting of that group back in April. Again, that's a twice yearly thing, so we'll have the the other one towards the back end of the season. Number 11, the Folly berthing. We've now relet the contract for the visitor berthing at the Folly, which is with Cowes Water Taxis again, who were the provider previously. And we've got a 5-year arrangement in place with them to continue to do that. We are still investigating the Walker Shore. We had a capital allocation of 18,000 to join our pontoon with the Folly pontoon to create additional Walker Shores. It's still in negotiation because the Folly Walker Shore isn't our pontoon. So to join to it, we need to get permission from the pub, and it's proving quite difficult to actually get that through. I personally, I don't think that'll happen, but we've still got the allocation there to be able to do it. Number 16, there's been a change in the Port Marine Safety Code and it's putting more reliance on the Harbour Authority to make sure that facilities within its river are complying with the Port Marine Safety Code. We've started that bit of work now to work out what our facilities are and also what we're going to ask of them. We've been doing a little bit of work with John up at Cowes, and they're a little bit further ahead than us, and he's kindly shared some information with us that myself and Jonathan are currently working through. We plan to categorise the facilities within the harbour, and then we can categorise what we ask them for. So we're working on that. Up-to-date hydrographic surveys, and we have to have, according to our sort of operating procedures, we survey the depths of the harbour at certain timescales. The harbour, the survey for Newport Harbour is due this year. Jonathan's placed a purchase order with the company we use, and we're just waiting on a date for them to come and attend to do that for us. Ventnor, we need to look at the dredging licenses for Ventnor. Currently, in the harbour revision order for Ventnor, we have permission to maintenance dredge the harbour, so we can mechanically dredge the harbour, but we haven't got a licence in place to dispose of the sand. So hence the one we did a little while ago, taking it down to Monk's Bay, it was above the tide line, so we could disperse it on the beach and it was better for the beaches, but there's quite a big cost to that. Ideally, what we'd like to do is to be able to dredge the harbour, take it a little bit towards the Sandown end and dispose over the wall, but we need to get permission. We need to get an area that we can dispose into to be able to do it with the Environment Agency. We have to, you only be able to do it at certain times of the year. We've also got a current dredging licence in place for the current operation, which expires next May. So the current operation is that there's a pump within the harbour confines that collects up the seaweed and sand and deposits it over the harbour wall back into the sea, and it keeps the harbour basin clear. That licence is up in May next year, so we need to reapply for that, and we've started that process as well. I think that was it of the differences from the last one. So happy to take any questions if there are any.
Thank you very much. It's good to see that you're on target with all of the tasks that we have to be done, and it's a very comprehensive list and report. Thank you very much, Mr. Everson. Councillor Redrup.
Just going back a bit on that, regarding the revised changes that were like what you guys are going to deal with, does that include the discharge from marine vessels in as far as holding tanks? Because as far as I'm aware, the only discharge facility that we have as mariners is in Cowes, is it not? And that's a bit infrequent for unloading our holding tanks.
Black tank discharge points, there is one in Cowes. Our houseboats at Little London got their own discharge point that they empty cassette loos into. So the houseboats don't discharge into the river. Visitors, either they have their own holding tanks if they're going to use their loo facilities on board, and then they can discharge that when they're in the Solent or when they go past Cowes. But we do encourage them to use our shore facilities, and then that's part of the sewage network. So our liveaboards have got a discharge point. Visitors, we encourage them to use the shore facilities.
My question was more to do with the changes in the new rules that was coming. Is any part of that, because in Europe it's mandatory, you've got to have holding tanks on your vessels. Currently, as far as I'm aware, that hasn't arrived on these shores yet. For leisure sailors, have holding tanks, unless that's been changed.
There's nothing referenced to that in the Port Marine Safety Code. No,
Basically what I was asking.
No.
So, okay, thank you. Yeah, they do.
There's some merit in that,
And
just
it's
a question.
principle.
Investigating financially or not?
We haven't got facilities to be able to do it because we're not connected into the sewer system in any way. So yes, it could be done, but it'd probably be quite a large capital works to put that facility in place. Right, Jonathan? Yeah.
Yeah, for the visitors, that would be very difficult.
Councillor Love.
I've only got one other question really. So I'm pleased to hear about Ventnor and how things are going there. That seems quite positive and moving forward. It's a shame that they didn't build the size of harbour that they said they were going to build in the first place. But that's way before most of us. I just want to try and understand the folly a bit more, because we've clearly got some money and we're not offering enough. What is it? Do we know what's stopping us? Stopping them from either engaging with us or going forward? Because if we've got some money to do it, surely that can only be beneficial to them unless they're losing somehow. What's
They have, the folly, we've only got, the one, well, we've got two pontoons that we use for visitors. One is within the distance that it can be connected to the pub's pontoon. We need their permission to be able to do it. And a couple of the questions that they specifically asked were whether others that had an interest in it were on board with it, of which they aren't. I don't know whether it's something I can cover off in this type of meeting. It's more about the arrangement with.
Yeah, it's probably a little bit commercially sensitive, but we could have a discussion about that outside of this room, because I think it would probably involve commercially sensitive details of another operator.
The reason I'm asking is because, again, if that has an impact upon our income and our ability to provide and build a better marina, better services, then we need to understand what that is, so even if it's outside this meeting, so that we can, as a council, get to grips with it and make any changes that might or might not be possible. But if we don't understand what that problem is, then we can't be part of the solution, can we?
The additional income to us is only between £2,000 and £3,000 a year. It's not a substantial amount of money.
No, but it might be more if it's connected, because I know.
No. That's with it connected. So.
Nevertheless, 2,000 or 3,000 is 2,000 and 3,000. And who's to say we aren't going to put another length on the? Because I'm commercially minded in this matter, we can either be a tiny little backwater port, or we can be something that's trying to create tourism and do different things.
We're still on that journey, getting the harbour into really good
So that's not a
state. No. Yeah, we have to, things are turned around massively. We're on a journey there, yeah. Mr. Minns.
You're in the same ballpark. I mean, we put that capital request in because we wanted to do this, and because we saw it being an additional income. We still very much wanted to do this, but seeking the permissions is proving to be more difficult for a whole host of commercial reasons, which I'm more than happy to discuss with you outside of this meeting.
We can wrap that up with that little work.
I would hope we could resolve it.
Yeah, but just to reassure you, Mr. Everson is in charge of our One Leisure facilities, which has turned around incredibly since COVID, and is now earning back in the black, and our figures are back up there. So I just want to, I know it's not part of this agenda, but I'm going to say thank you very much, Mr. Everson, for doing that, all the whole team there. So the team that's overseeing the harbour is that team. Right, no more questions. It's all very odd finishing the agenda without having members' questions. Can we not put members' questions back to the bottom? It just seems a bit odd that we aren't questions that would come up during the discussion of the harbour, that you might come up during it, then you can't ask them. So anyway, I guess, Chair, I can move them to the bottom if I want to.
I think you have that discretion, Chair, with the agreement of the committee at any point. So
I think I'll do that for our next meeting. Is have if everyone's agreed.
I can't find what you can do though in the Constitution at the moment.
The Constitution, yes, is a mighty weight on my shoulders at the moment. 350 pages of it. I think our next meeting, I'm minded to do that. I think it gives a bit more space to be able to explore other topics that might come up during the course of the meeting, as we've had today, but we obviously have to stick to the agenda. So our next meeting is in September. Hopefully it's all gone in your diaries already. Thank you very much for giving up your afternoons, and thank you very much to our officers and Kat as well for support. And this meeting is now closed.